back to ChattaPlays. We're continuing the Factorio tutorial series today. This is episode 4. So I've done a lot of off-camera work, probably more than I should. Let's just say I kind of got ahead of myself while playing. So this episode's going to kind of be a walkthrough where I'll be explaining things. It was just kind of easier to do it this way because a lot of these things take some time to set up, and I didn't want to have to go back and edit mainly. But I'll start going over them. Oh, this is bugging me though, so I'm going to fix that. As you can see, we have a brand new sign. I've moved it from where it originally was with the wood boxes. I decided to go with these just because they show up better. Once we get concrete, we'll have a finalized sign, so y'all stop seeing me change it. The first major update is actually going to be our smelting area. Like I said, I set up smelting blocks each time, and there's two different ways you can do this. You can have it run on separate belts going through the middle, and then have the iron feed, and then so basically this one would be coal, and then you'd have a cross belt feeding it iron, and then the iron would go up the middle, and then the actual iron ore would come out the side. I just do it this way because it's easier to set up for me, especially once I've switched to electric furnaces. It won't really matter that much on if we have two iron belts kind of thing, because I do a block setup like this. Once we put beacons and stuff in, I'll have to change it all up anyways, so I'd rather just keep it simple with one setup for now. As you can see, I do have a separate belt running of iron, coal, and there's a couple pieces of wood because I have that all my junk coal and wood feeding onto this belt right now. But as you can see, I have it split coming in on 2 inbound lines from our mining area, and then this splitter right here splits it into 4 lines perfectly even, and then that feeds onto the side belts right here, the coal in them, and then basically the same thing up here from the coal line splits to the 4 separate lines evenly. That way when all the smelteries are running, it's pulling all at the same time instead of having the coal fighting on which line it should go to. And that splitter looks like that there. You start with 1 splitter and then go off to 2, leave a space here, another 2, and then 4, and that splits it into the 4 lines perfectly evenly. Now to get it on this side of the belt, all I did was do little side belt mapping kind of thing. So it only feeds on that side, and when it goes through the splitter, it'll only feed on that side. And then the iron comes in on that side. Same thing for the copper over here. I only have 2 smelting blocks, but we have a lot more copper than is necessary. I actually have 5 lines of copper feeding into this one. And you notice here I have 2 separate lines for it. That's if I ever want to come back and come back and add more blocks. I am able to do that. You always want to leave room for expansion in your factories. You never know how much of each resource you're going to be using. Over here you can see my little feeder setup. It's just some boxes feeding onto the line with all the junk stuff. Next thing I did was upgrade the power right here. I've basically just made it 4 different steam engine lines that are all connected together. We are nowhere near hitting our power consumption max now. When I started setting up all the miners, it started putting a huge drain on the system. So I went ahead and just set that up. This we will get to a little bit later in the episode. I've also moved radars and made 5 more of them so that I basically have full scale, and we actually have our first biters coming on the screen now down near this oil patch. And what I will probably end up doing is, because that oil patch is so massive, is we'll run some trains down there later on in the tutorial series once we get to oil and such, because these are spaced out kind of small. That one's decent, and it's near some coal too, so we could actually do all of our oil production right there and then ship it in, but we got to go through some trees to do that. This one's actually pretty decent, but that one is a huge mound. Plus I want to fight some biters at some point instead of just setting up my factory the full time. Anyways, back into the game. Next thing you'll see that I've done is actually set up the main bus here. I haven't put the splitters onto the copper belt yet because it's not that important right now. We're only feeding in 2 lines. But as you can see, the iron feeds in through 4 lines, and basically, like on this one, if I were to take 50 of these out, take out some more transport belts because I have so many of them. As you can see, it starts pulling off this line, but all of the lines light up down here. This one more so because it's pulling off that line, but these light up as well and start pushing onto it because we have this splitter here that pulls it down. And this is how I'm going to actually be using my main bus most of the time. Is I'm going to leave the 2 lines as low priority so that those will always be full, and if we need something at the end of the line for the factory, we have plenty of resources to do it. As you can see here, I moved our belt setup situation over this way, so 2 gear factories feed into 2 belt factories, belts feed into the box, feeds into another box, so I have extra belts, and that one feeds into the underground ones, which I have limited to only 200. I don't ever use that many at a time, but if I went and did some pull-ups of the base and remap some stuff, then I would have to do that. That is basically it for the updates so far, except for these, but I'll be getting to those later in the episode. Other thing I wanted to go over, I don't know if I've covered this yet, but as you can see, my inventory has a bunch of different items in it, and when I was crafting some items, because I don't have everything automated yet, I was trying to get the main bus set up, so I didn't automate anything off camera. But you'll notice that, say you want pipes in these last 2 bars, but you only want pipes. So right now, if I was crafting furnaces and took something out, they would go right here. But if I didn't want that to happen, I wanted them to go straight to my inventory. One of the things you can do is actually, if on a, well, I guess it pulled up, but if you middle mouse button click on one of these empty slots right here, you can choose what to set it as. So I want that one as straight pipes, and then I can click those in there. And then any more that I craft up to the max stack size will immediately go into that instead of into my inventory. The other thing is if something's already in that slot, you can click it again with the middle mouse button, and it maps it directly to that slot. So things that I always usually have in my hotbar are going to be your belt type that you're using at the current moment. So go ahead and favorite those, and then I usually have inserters and whatever you want to use for your power at the time. Right now we only have access to the small ones, so that's what I have there. The other 3 slots I usually leave empty. This one usually switches out to blue inserters, the fast ones, and then let's see, what else do I usually put in there? Repair packs a little bit later, and sometimes like gun turrets, and that's pretty much the base of what I do. Maybe some walls and stuff, train tracks. It just depends really what you're doing, especially later in the game. Once you get into more research, I'd have to go look back at some of my saves. I just don't remember at this point what I normally put in there. The other thing that I was going to cover today is stone path production. That was one of the other things I did off camera, was I went and set up a stone mine where a little stone was, and then that just feeds in with a coal line from the south. Same modular smelting setup, except I didn't put the spaces because I really didn't care about it at the time. As you can see, we're already getting some of the boxes filled up here, but this is stone bricks. As you can see, if you build a stone path with it, which you just lay it down and you have to have path in your hand to pick it back up, but it actually gives you 130% movement speed. This is also one of those things that you might want to have in your hotbar. But as you can see, if I wanted to come in, I'm probably going to need more of this, so I'm going to take those. But if I wanted to come in and make like a little border around our sign here, I can just come in like that. See if I can not go everywhere with it while moving on belts. So Stop it. Okay, there we go. Boom. And then to increase and decrease the size, you use the plus and minus buttons on your numpad or on your regular keyboard. No, actually, you have to use the numpad ones. I don't have it mapped to the other ones right now. But then to pick it right up, it's just like you're picking up anything else. You just come along with the cursor highlighted over it, and it'll pick it up. Bonuses to using stone paths around your factory, and then further on concrete once you unlock it. As you can see here, let me clean this up because I'm OCD about some things like paths. As you can see here, here's me walking normally. Here's me walking around on the stone path. As you can tell, it's a little bit faster. And then if you even wanted to increase that speed a bit and make like walkways like they have at the airport and stuff, you can lay belts down. And I'll go back up. So here's our normal run. Here's the path, and then on a belt. As you can see, it is a major speed increase if you do that. So it's really good if you have parts of your factory that are far out, or like it would have been really nice if I had set this up at the beginning instead of at the very end like I did earlier, so I could run from the very top of my factory up here to the very bottom in a shorter amount of time. The bonus does stack with belts, like I said. It also works on cars. For tanks, the speed bonus doesn't really affect it much. It'd be just like driving on sandy terrain. The other thing is, once we get power armor and stuff and we have the walking legs, it does add to that speed bonus as well. So you'd be flying around the factory if you had like 5 legs on your power armor. So the next thing that I did off camera that I wanted to show you guys was how I set up my science labs. I mentioned briefly when we set up our first one that I usually do a setup. As you can see, it's literally just science labs in the middle of it, power lines, and then I alternate with a long reach and then a short reacher for 2 separate belts. Sorry about that. As you can see, I only have the red science on one side of the belt right now. And that's because later on, I will actually be coming in here. And you can do this. Let's put that back. So I could come in like this, cut that path off there. And then if I had another science pack come in, say, green, I could have that flowing in right there, and then it would flow onto that side of the belt, and then this one would pull in both of those science packs separately, of course, but it'd still grab both sides off that belt. I'm just gonna pick this up real quick. All that back. Not that I need to do that, but it just makes me feel better. And then, as you can see by the amount of red science packs, I then did our red science setup. This one is typically what I do. I've kind of doubled it just because I want science to go very fast on our tutorial series, so we're not having to sit around and wait for stuff to research. But it's basically for 1 gear factory of a regular assembler, you need 10 standard science factories, and it produces pretty darn fast. I think this one filled up in like 4 minutes maybe after being used. So we have iron split off, and that feeds into 2 fast inserters that feed into our gear factories. And I have those feeding onto a belt, and then the belt goes all the way down and feeds into all 10 science factories. And then the copper comes in on both sides of that. And then long handles drop off the red science because it takes 5 seconds to make, so 10 seconds in the regular factories are, let me double check that actually, yeah, 5 seconds to make, so 10 seconds in the regular factories, because they have a half crafting speed. So you're getting who knows how many per minute. I'm not going to figure that out, math, right? Anyways, and then that feeds up into the rotunda. So if you want to see how fast this research is, I actually held out and didn't research some stuff so you guys could see this. first thing we're going to want to get is assembling machine 2s. So we're going to throw those in there, and then as you can look in the upper bar here where our science is, it's just breezing along. Because this one, yeah, it takes 40 science packs, so that's 2 inserts into the labs, which it already has them in there. So we're good to go in 30 seconds. This will be done in 30 seconds. So as you can see, the more labs you have, the faster you research, and then you need to offset that with how many science factories you're producing to how many labs you have. That's why I have 20 of them, basically. So I'm just gonna start researching here. I just got the advanced assemblies, so we're gonna start on walls. As you can see, stone walls should be complete in about 10 seconds. And boom, 10 seconds and it's done. Gonna go ahead and research steel because we'll be going into that in the next episode. As you can see, again, it just breezes along, so in no time we're gonna be done with all of the red science updates. Boom, already done with steel. As I said, this adds 10 extra slots to your quick bar. When I was mentioning that earlier, it does require green science though. One that I am probably going to skip over, actually, is going to be, or make the green packs at least, is going to be military 2 before the next episode. So I'll be making 20 green science packs in my hotbar unless I set up green science, but that's probably going to be on camera, so I'll probably skip that so that we can get into it in the next episode and everything. We can get our armor now. As you can see, these research in seconds. See, this one takes 30 seconds, so that one will be a little bit longer so I can talk a bit more. But like I said, I'm going to craft the green science packs in my inventory so that we're not waiting around on military 2. That way I can jump straight into red ammo production, which is armor piercing, plus it provides a damage bonus to the gun turrets and in your own guns. That way we're not having to mess around with the regular firearm magazines. They do decent damage. I just don't usually like using them, so I auto craft. As you can see, these do 2.5 times the damage, plus they have an armor piercing quality to them. Not very much versus like the later game biters, but they still do the most damage overall, especially if we're going to be taking out some biter bases. We might need those armor piercing rounds. And then you can get things like damage upgrades for your turret, shooting speed, and the bullet damage and the turret damages do increase likewise for both. So as well as increasing the damage on the turret itself, you can increase the bullet damage so that they'll do even more damage. You can also increase the shooting speed so they shoot faster as well. Let's see if there's anything else. Like I said, we're going to be finished up with red science here soon. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Sorry I did a bunch of work off camera. I just kind of got ahead of myself. Next episode, though, we will be doing most of it on camera because I'll be recording it pretty soon after this one. So if you liked the video, make sure to hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I hope to be more active this month. I've kind of had a slow month last month and having to work a little bit more. So have fun, guys. Bye.